Hey folks, thank you for tuning in again to watch the restoration of the 1978 Kawasaki KZ1000 Z1R. In this video, I will start putting it back together. So, step one, put the engine lower end back together. Crank, transmission, cases, get it to shift and all of that. So, thank you for joining me and have fun watching. Okay, well it's time to start reassembling the Z1R engine. I watched the video where I took both of them apart, and I want to try to just do it in reverse order. So this is the oil filter pressure bypass, I believe it's called. It's a ball, this ball bearing sits in a little channel that's right there, and I think this is like the last thing I took out, so I'll put this in first. Oil on that ball there. Okay, that's in. So the next thing is the transmission shift fork thingamajig. Okay, this is the primary, this is the shift drum. Primary, it just is. Short end, so there's a big end and a short end, and it totally matters. The short end faces the shifter mechanism side, it's over here, so this is the correct orientation. And I better flip this over. Is it the right way? Yep. Yeah, it's just reading some steps. So that should be neutral right there. And this is the stop, and then there's a spring-loaded detent that goes in so that you feel it go into neutral. Looking for torque specs. I don't see a lot of torque specs. There's like nothing in there for the engine. For the transmission, excuse me. Maybe I should put this other thing in first. So it did say to use Loctite on this. Can you see what I'm working on? Uh-oh. Oil. I'm worried about the paint flaking off, damaging the paint while I put it back together. but I'm sure I'll get so frustrated by working on something that I'll just not care about that. It's only a couple of threads on this thing. Now there's this locking tab that locks the big one. Give it some bigger pliers. One good enough. Okay, alright, well that's that. Okay, well that's neutral. Alright, so then this is going to go on the other bench, and I'll bring over the engine case, the upper engine case, and we'll look at putting the crank in. Okay, well the first thing I have to do, I already blew it all out. It's as clean as it's going to get. Instead of the bolts for the cranks, I have these studs. These are for like drag racing application, but I just couldn't find a complete set of those bolts, and since one of them snapped, I figured, you know, might as well replace them. This was like 60, 70 bucks, something like that. APE Racing out in California. That's where the cylinder head and the cylinder are. They are still out there. They get really busy off season because everybody wants to rebuild their drag racing engines. Why did I send it out there? Because they know how to build KZ1000 valve trains, engines, and everything, so they have a lot of experience. As these things get older, there's fewer and fewer places that will work on them. Alright, so looks like this thread pitch is the same for either way. Yep. Okay, so there are 8 that are 72 millimeter, 2 that are 95, and 2 that are something else. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 2 that are that size, and 2 that are that size. So what's 95 millimeters in inches? Okay, well, looking at the case, the points cover side needs a shorter bolt, and the magneto cover side needs a longer bolt. So these ones will go here. So these ones will go here, and then these ones will go over here. Alright. So how are we going to install them? ones. So these 4 and these 4 are all the smaller type. They're all on the inside of the engine. Anyway, procedure is put some of this thread locker on there, double up 2 nuts, tighten them together, and then thread it. Okay, here we have the old and new timing chain, and I would say they are the same. This is the new one. And this has to be on there, on the crank, before I try to install it. Like that. Okay. So this is the magneto side, this is the point side. I have no idea how difficult it's going to be to line these up. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 locating dowels that go into these bearing races, I guess you'd call them. And I did just oil them all up. So there's 6 of those. What should I do? Kind of line them all up somehow. Okay, so I gotta get each of these to align. Some of them are way off. So each of those little dowels has to align to the pin. This will be fun. Okay, I got them all seated. Took about 5 minutes. It was a pain in the ass. So I think that's good. Now I'm not sure if I should lock this down because that Loctite has not been setting up for very long. I really don't know how long it's supposed to give it. Allow 30 minutes to 2 hours. Okay, so I won't do that now, I don't have to. But this cap goes on there like that. So these 4 you can't do until you put the cases together. They lock the case down. So what can I do now? I can put the transmission in. Okay, so this is the input shaft. You got the crank. Crank spins and it turns the outer clutch housing, and the inside of the clutch is attached to this shaft, which transfers all the power. So I did just clean up the transmission, took it apart very carefully, noted the order, cleaned it all out, oiled it. There was some dirt in it. There's little oil passages, oil gets pumped through here. So there's one locator right here and then oil passage there that feeds it, which goes there. So, And then this retaining ring is here. Actually, I probably have to put the housing on with it. Darn. So, needle bearing. Good. Time for the, hope you can see some of that. I've been trying to get better about not blocking the camera with my elbows. I don't know. But when you get in the middle of doing something, you just don't remember. Right, so yeah, you can see this is third, fourth, and fifth, I believe. I think that's fifth, and that's fourth, and I think that's third right there. So if it's right in the center, third, fourth, fifth. All right, so output shaft. Output shaft. So this is the output shaft. I've taken it all apart, taken all the gears off. There's a whole ton of components, and it's very easy to screw up the order. So I've cleaned everything up. And I put it together for the last time. There's two sides that you put together. So let's see, so this big thick washer. Washer, third gear, splined washer, snap ring, okay. Fifth gear, and I've double checked this, and I have the transmission from the original engine here as a guide, and I've already oiled all this stuff. So let's see, there's an oil hole here, and there's an oil hole over here. So that oil hole and that oil hole, hopefully you can see it, have to align. Good. Okay, then another snap ring. Fifth gear, right, so third, fifth, snap ring, another splined washer. And this is second gear is bushing, or another oil hole that has to be aligned. Okay. And then second gear. Second gear. Washer. And the bearing. And the bearing has a keeper line in it, and that goes towards the gears. You can feel just like a little tiny bit of play in there. And I cleaned this all out and then re-oiled it. Like I actually compared it to this one. I think it's normal to have a tiny bit of play in it. You go back and forth, you can't feel any play at all. But if you wiggle it, you feel just a little bit of play in there. Okay, so I think that's that. Now for the other side. Okay. So I took the original engine's transmission, I took it apart and dealt with this annoying issue already. So this has these three little balls. I don't know if you remember when I was taking apart the engine, the first engine, I couldn't figure out why I couldn't upshift it into second. It's because of these little ball bearings. These little detents here. This ball bearing will sit in there when the shaft is not spinning. Ball bearing sits in there and it keeps you from moving this gear, which keeps it from going into second. So it'll stay in neutral. So this is like, that's first gear, neutral, and then what makes it go into third gear is the shift shaft moves, and it moves this one. Actually, I think that's third. That's second, third. Well, I'm getting all confused, but third gear, fifth gear, second gear. Third, fifth, second. Right, this one in the middle here is locked to the shaft, so if this is spinning freely, how does this work? Right, so that's first, neutral. I'm gonna figure this out. Right, basically, because this won't move, like up like that, is that what it is? So they have to go into the little, yeah, I think that's neutral. Right, so that's first, and then it drops down here, and that's neutral. And so with the balls in place, it doesn't matter. You can get into first and then get into neutral, but it won't go down like this. And when it won't go down like that, it doesn't allow the shift fork that rides on here to travel to the position that will get it into third gear, which basically engages that one. So there's two shift forks, one here, and they have to move, and you can't move it unless this one drops all the way down. That's what it is. Alright, whatever. So I gotta get these three little balls in there, and it was a real pain in the neck. The other one, so there's 1, 2, and one fell out already. this. Okay. Okay, so I lifted it up and now the ball's dropped in, and now I can't get it to go the other way, so that's fine. Alright, so then these washers go on there. This needle bearing. And then the final C-clip. Okay. And then this cap here. I'm looking for that moment where it just goes clunk and goes right in. Doesn't seem to want to give me that moment. Well, I gotta fool around with this, I guess. Okay, well here it is. Let's see, so that's... Well, that's of course not gonna do anything, this is no clutch. Neutral. Okay, neutral is turning. How about a neutral? Where are you? Okay, I guess I gotta figure this out. Okay, well, what the problem is, here's the shaft from the original engine, which I have not taken apart. And here is the input shaft from the engine that I did, from the transmission I just took apart. And this is located incorrectly. So I'm going to flip that around. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, so that's seated. Right. There it is. Alright, so give me neutral. Come on. there it is. Alright, neutral. First. And then I can't do anything else because of those ball bearing things. I guess I could spin it. Oh yeah, how did I do that last time? Let me try that. Here we go, okay. So that allowed that to move. Alright, so I think that's first, second, and then where is third? Is that third? No. That's third. There we go. There's third. Right? First, second, third. Gears get smaller. And then fourth is this comes over, this comes over. That. So that's fourth. Oops. And then fifth. So if I put that back there and I put this first. Then neutral. Okay, I think it's good. All right. Good enough. Well, I took the transmission out again. I wanted to double check that I went through the assembly instructions completely by the book. And it's funny, you know, something as complex as a transmission, and this is not even a very complex one, it's only a 5-speed. Disassembly, assembly, they usually break it down into disassembly, inspection, and then assembly. They don't have a separate inspection area. But anyway, step 4, follow the disassembly procedures in the reverse order, along with additional procedures listed below. And there are some additional procedures like, you know, line up this little hole with a hole in the thing. I mean, it's only the disassembly instructions were 7 steps, 1 sentence each. They couldn't have just listed it out to make it incredibly simple. And then they do the same thing on the output shaft. I don't know, probably a Kawasaki genuine manual would be better. Anyway, another reason I took it apart is it was bothering me that the shaft, not the shaft, the needle bearing, the other one, has a little bit of play in it. If you go like this, you can just feel it rock back and forth. Now, I don't know if that's normal or not, so I said, you know what, I'm doing all this. I don't want it to clunk when you put it in gear. I don't want it to, you know, like you can ruin these if you tighten the chain and leave it too tight for too long. So I don't know what's the good expectation. So I ordered 2 new bearings. It wasn't that much, maybe $70. But this one, it's not oiled, but it has the exact same play in it. So I don't think there was anything wrong with this bearing. I think it's just totally fine. And this one, if I'm being honest, it feels flimsy. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like as nice of a bearing. And I'm not basing that on anything other than the way it feels. it weighs, it's a little bit lighter. Anyway, that's the output shaft bearing. These are the input shaft bearings. Now this is the replacement one. This is a nice big solid bearing. There's no play in this one. In the old one, it's totally fine. But I figured, the hell with it. I'm done all this. I might as well take the time. So I don't know if I showed the input shaft going together. So I'll show this one going together. Hopefully keeping my elbow out of the shot. Alright, so you're supposed to press on the new bearing, and then this little ring goes outside. So it presses on, oh, ow, fuck. Okay, it presses on a little bit. Is that all the way on? I don't know if that's all the way on. So I could put it in my press, or I could maybe just whack on it. There it is. Okay. Alright, so that's all you do on that side. And you flip it over. Just hold it in place here. So there's a couple of oil holes. One down here, two here, and one here. So, note the position of any, oh, that's disassembly, okay. Check each gear for excessive wear, burrs, pitting, chipped, or missing teeth. I've already done that. It all looked good to me. Make sure the lugs on ends of gears are in good condition, which I believe they mean these things. I mean, I'm no expert, but that looks totally fine. Check the condition of the bearings, make sure blah blah blah, it's fine, replace if necessary. Follow the assembly procedures in reverse order. To install the ball bearing assembly on the clutch end of the drive shaft, turn the bearing so that its groove faces away from the drive shaft. Put the bearing on the drive shaft and press it into place. I did that. When fitting third gear and fifth gear bushing to the splines of the drive shaft, turn them so that the oil holes will be aligned with the oil hole splines on the drive shaft. So that's these things here. So then the last step is remove the ball bearing assembly, and so I put that on. Step 6, take off the last snap ring, pull off the splined washer and fourth gear. So fourth gear goes on first. And it just has its own bushing inside it, which looks good. Okay. Again, it makes it confusing to do the steps in reverse order because you have to read each step backwards. So fourth gear, splined washer, and the snap ring. Take off the snap ring and pull off third gear. So put on third gear. Okay, and third gear has an oil hole. And the oil hole for it is over here. So I've got those lined up. Lines up there and there. Okay, good. Snap ring. So this confused me last time because the gear will travel up and hit into that snap ring, and you don't want that. But I believe the other gears lock in place so that it can't get close enough to it. Third gear and the snap ring. Okay, third gear snap ring. Okay, blind washer. Fifth gear bushing. It's this one. And here's the hole. Right there, so that's lined up. Good. And then fifth gear. So when this comes up, it can't get close enough to that snap ring, so there's no problem there. Second gear. There's no hole in this. It just is fixed onto it. So that one spins. It's kind of funny that this gear spins right next to this gear without anything in between. I'd have to say that, yeah, this side is shinier. If you look at the teeth, the underside is shinier than this side, so I believe that was the way it went. So, right, fifth gear, and it's bushing. Second gear, 2 washers. Needle bearing. Circlip. Circlip. Bushing. Okay, and that's that. And then the rest is the clutch on the other side. So flip it over. This is for the clutch, and that has a hole in it, but I don't think it matters because it rotates. Okay, so this is ready to go back in. So we have an oil hole here, and there's a little dowel there, keep it in place. And you can see here, there's the oil hole and there's the dowel locator. So put the needle bearing on there. Clip here. This clip is what holds the bearing in place. There we go. So there's that. Alright, so I've got those back in, get the transmission in. Now what I want to do is put the other half of the case on, not for the final time, and reassemble the shifter mechanism and double check that it works properly. I can shift all through the gears and neutral and everything. It's in neutral right now. If I move this, see? So that's what I'm going to do now. And then if that all checks out, I'll take the case off again, clean it up, put my seal in, put sealant all around the case, and then put them together. I also have to find the correct bolts. There's about 5 zillion bolts. I have bolt kits that unfortunately I bought months ago and did not label what they are. I think this is the oil pan, and I think this is the case halves, but I could be mistaken. So I got to figure all that out. You know what I think I need is a camera that can like point down like this. Like maybe I'll hang something off of one of these shelves. Anyway, I put the shifter on and I've been playing around with it, and it kind of seems to like half shift, but I'm not really able to tell whether that's because I'm just not moving like there's, it's not actually moving, so the chain isn't spinning the output shaft. So when I go to shift it, there's no load on the output shaft. Actually, that's a good point. Maybe I should put my hand on the output shaft and slow it down or load on it or something. It just seems like between fifth down to fourth, fourth down to third especially, it like doesn't immediately shift into it. I suspect it's because I'm doing this, but I think it's good. All right, so it's in neutral right now. So you can see the output shaft here. It spins because there's oil and there's drag on it, but if you hold the output shaft, it doesn't go anywhere. I think my face is really close to the camera, so forgive me. I don't really know how else to do it. Because I gotta shift, I gotta be over here. Anyway, so there's neutral, right? So there's down into first, and then second, third, fourth, but that half shifted. So if I hold the output shaft, you see how it spins? So it's basically stuck between second and third right now. So there's third again. There's fourth. And that's fifth. You see, that kind of makes me nervous. I shifted and it landed between third and fourth. Fuck. I mean, I don't know. Is there something wrong with the transmission? It all looks like it's correct. I don't see any burrs on anything. Is it because I'm not spinning it fast enough? So watch my downshift. So it's in fifth. Okay, so I tried to shift it in fourth. It wouldn't move all the way over. And if you look in here, you can see that the teeth are butting up against each other. They move at different. Like one is basically. They move independently. So as long as one moves out of the way, you can shift over. Put it back in fifth. You can't really hold on to the output shaft and hold the drill and shift. Maybe I should get my assistant. Okay. My assistant, my daughter, has joined me. I guess I won't show you. Mom doesn't want you on the videos.
No, she doesn't.
So I think the key is I hold a little bit of pressure on the output shaft and it seems to shift just fine. So we are in neutral. So go up. That's first gear. Now go down. Second, go down again. Third, dig down again. That's fourth, go down again. Fifth, good, okay. And this is like burning my hand because it's a gear and I'm holding it. Okay, ready, now I'm gonna give you the commands, ready? So we're in fifth, up, and that's fourth, now up. That's third, now up. Okay, up again. Okay, ready, and down, 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 down. Okay, up, 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 up. Perfect. Yeah, that's all it is. So I was worried it wouldn't shift right. I just wanted to make sure I had everything in there correctly. All right, I got to crank down these bolts here. It says 18, well, bolts, nuts. It says 18, I think. The first, you take them up in stages. I think I'll take them to 20, so I'll do 10 and then 15 and then 20. So that's 10. that. And I need the seal, and then I have to put sealer all around. Okay, so now I cleaned off the mating surface of the cases with some carb clean, brake cleaner. Now I gotta put the sealer on. They said as thin a coat as possible. Actually, I should read the instructions on this, shouldn't I? Wipe off. Apply thinly and evenly as possible using a brush or putty knife. Wait approximately 1 minute, then mate the two surfaces, okay? So I've got a bunch of this to do. Okay. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts on the inside, nuts on the inside, previously bolts. Put some Loctite on these as instructed. What's funny is this case bolt set I came with 8 crankcase bolts. It came with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but not these 4. So I didn't even need this kit. I could have just reused for I didn't need the stud kit. Like I said, it was overkill anyway. I could have just used the bolts and these new bolts that were provided. Easier, put those on. And it appears to have the tightening sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inside to outside, which is typically how you do things. Okay, good. There's 17 of these bolts, the smaller ones. They wanted Loctite on these 3. I had 2 of them, but the bolts were really tight, so I had to run a tap. And I had already run bolts, down every single hole. I don't know what happened there, but I think if I do one of these again, I'll try to put all of the 6mm bolts in there and make sure they can all go all the way down. Probably some of them people have put Loctite on in the past and maybe cross-threaded. I don't know how you cross-thread these bolts. They're pretty easy to get at when the engine's upside down anyway. Okay, now I got to flip it over, and I think there's 4 more bolts. I'm test fitting the covers. And why am I test fitting the covers? Because I'm having a hell of a time with some of these bolt holes. You got your 44-year-old engine case here. Most of the threads are fine, but some of the threads, like for instance this one here, I went through and I put a bolt, a brand new bolt, through all of the holes, and any that were resistant, I put a tap through it. So it should have been fine, but that one gave me a hard time. This one gave me a hard time. See how I have a couple of washers on it? Because it just seemed like it bottomed out. It seemed like it was bottoming out. Now this is a Allen head or hex head kit to replace the old kind of bolts. But I did, the sizes look correct. It's not like the bolt's too long. Some of them you put in and they go a couple threads and they stop. And I think it's running into old Loctite, if I had to guess. But on one of them, some threads came out. So for instance, this thing here, since I'm not putting the kicker back in, this is a cover from APE Racing. And like this one here, the bolt that came with it, only a couple of threads engaged. So when I tried to torque it, it stripped off, and so I pulled it out and I retapped it, and I used a slightly longer bolt, and that's okay. But it's been kind of a pain in the ass. So for instance, here's the clutch cover. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bolts. 7 of them are okay. These 2 top ones, pain in the ass. So for instance, right, so you can crank on it and probably get it to go in there, but you're always going to risk breaking a bolt off. Of course, that's no good. And you look at this cover, you say this cover is like kind of crappy. That's all right. I have a brand new cover. I'm just going to put the old covers on it for when I install it. So that one I already tapped out. Anyway, just kind of time consuming. Especially this one. This one has like 8 bolts in it. This cover has 4. There's a lot of covers, a lot of bolts on this freaking thing. Let's take a look at this brand new reproduction points cover. Dyna cover, not sure. Look how perfect that is. Here's the old one. Here's the old one. And of course, with a lot of work, you can clean that up. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not heavily scratched or anything, but I don't know what this was, maybe 60 bucks. Or I got a kit, I don't remember. I have it all written down somewhere. So before I do that final install on this shift linkage cover, well, first I have to paint it, but I want to make sure that this neutral indicator switch is working properly. So what happens with this is that there's a little detent on the shift drum that when it's in neutral, it'll open. There's a little ball on the end of the switch. It'll push that ball up, and that makes it the terminal have contact with the case, and that grounds it. So that's what makes your neutral light come on. So I have an ohm meter here, and right now it's at infinite resistance. And if I shift it into neutral, it goes to ground, kinda. Get some resistance, but I think that's typical. I'm not sure whether it grounds itself through this case or what. Like this is made of magnesium of some sort, right? So it's not a very good conductor of electricity. So maybe it grounds itself through the transmission shift drum. That's all metal. In any case, that's what I'm looking for. Well, thank you for watching. I don't know if that you want me to rebuild your engine. I put the trying to put the transmission output shaft in and it won't go in, and it's because the input shaft I put together wrong. And I had a guide to go by because I had an extra transmission from the other bike, and I still got it wrong. And I looked at the instructions. So hopefully, I did take apart the input and the output shaft again, as I kind of showed in the video, to replace those bearings. When I replaced those bearings, and went through the instruction guide again, and then I checked that it shifts okay, and I think I got it right. So we shall see, but that is the lower end of the engine. So next step is to do the roll, is to put the rolling chassis back together. And we'll put the lower end in the bike, and I'm looking at over here the cylinder head and the cylinder and piston kit just came in, so I can then put that together. So thank you for joining me, and have a great day.